In heraldry, an ordinary is a simple geometrical figure, bounded by straight lines and running from side to side or top to bottom of the shield. There are also some geometric charges known as subordinaries, which have been given lesser status by some heraldic writers, though most have been in use as long as the traditional ordinaries. Diminutives of ordinaries and some subordinaries are charges of the same shape, though thinner. Most of the ordinaries are theoretically said to occupy 1/3 of the shield, but this is rarely observed in practice, except when the ordinary is the only charge. The terms ordinary and subordinary are somewhat controversial, as they have been applied arbitrarily and inconsistently among authors, and the use of these terms has been disparaged by some leading heraldic authorities. In his complete guide to heraldry, Arthur Charles Fox Davis asserted that the terms are likely inventions of heraldic writers and not of heralds, arguing the utter absurdity of the necessity for any classification at all, and stating that the ordinaries and subordinaries are, in his mind, no more than first charges. Ordinaries resemble partitions of the field, but are formally considered objects on the field, though there is some debate as to exactly which geometrical charges with straight edges and running from edge to edge of the shield constitute ordinaries. Certain ones are agreed on by everyone, except for the chief. They are central to the shield, cross a pale and a fess of equal widths conjoined, as in the arms of the City of London. Pale, a vertical stripe right down the middle of the shield, typically 1/5 to 1/3 road the width of the field. A variant is the Canadian pale, invented in 1964 for the new Canadian national flag. It takes up half the width of the field. Fess, a horizontal stripe, as in the coat of arms of Austria, typically 1/5 to 1/3 road the height of the field. Bar, a narrower fess, sometimes reckoned as an ordinary in its own right. It is rarely borne singly. Bend, an oblique band from the dexter chief to the opposite corner, as in the arms of the former Grand Duchy of Baden. Bend sinister, a bend in the opposite direction. Chevron, like the beams of a gable, as in the arms of Trans-Switzerland. Saltire, a bend and a bend sinister, both of the equal widths conjoined, like a St Andrews cross diagonal cross times as in the Scots national banner. Chief, horizontal band right across the top of the shield, as in the arms of the District of Lausanne. Chief, triangular, begins in the corners and extends to a point that is 1/4 to 1/3 the way down the shield. It is a complex line division variant of a chief. Chief N-arched is drawn with a concave arch. Chief double-arched has 2 concavities. The following are sometimes classed as ordinaries, sometimes as subordinaries. Bordure, the boundary of the shield, often used for cadence. Pile, downward pointing triangle, issuing from the top of the shield. Pawl, a pale, a Y shape. A variant is the shake fork, a pawl cut short at the margins, with pointed ends. It is frequent in Scotland, owing to its prominence in the armoury of Clan Cunningham. Lines of variation. Ordinaries need not be bounded by straight lines. Subordinaries. Some geometric figures are not considered to be honourable ordinaries, and are called subordinaries. Very loosely, they are geometric or conventional charges that, unlike ordinaries, do not stretch from edge to edge of the shield. There is no definitive list or definition, but they generally include fixed subordinaries. Fixed subordinaries are those that have a particular place to go on a shield, or at least a very limited range of places. Quarter, the dexter chief quadrant of the shield. Canton, smaller than the quarter, are formally said to occupy 1/9 of the shield, though sometimes drawn smaller. The canton is often said to be the quarter's diminutive, but perhaps it should be treated as a subordinary in its own right, as it fulfills heraldic functions not fulfilled by the quarter, and behaves according to its own special rules, as for example in the case of the canton on which baronets in the UK may display the badges of their rank, which is very rarely shown occupying such a large area as the upper left third of the field, and is usually much less and very often shown not as square but as a rectangle with its longer side vertical. Very occasionally a sinister canton is found on the shield's other side. Flaunches, always borne in pairs, a circular arc emerging out of each flank of the shield, fret, interlacing bendlet, sinister and maskell, gore, two arcs meeting in the first point to form a triangular segment, gyron, the lower half of a quarter cut diagonally, said to be an old charge but rare although there are modern examples, orly, a bordure separated from the outside of the shield. Like the bordure, the orly takes on the shape of the shield or flag it is on. Although the orly's diminutive is the treasure, there are examples of fillet orlies. It is often said that an orly may not have other charges charged on it, but the Scots Public Register, when a number of charges are arranged as if on a bordure, they are said to be in orly to form an orly of such charges. Treasure, a thinner version and hence diminutive of the orly. The most famous treasure is probably the double treasure flory counterflory in the royal coat of arms of Scotland. Treasures with other ornamentation exist, such as with maple leaves, crestlands, thistles and roses. Mobile subordinaries. Other subordinaries can be placed anywhere on the field. Escutcheon, a shield used as a charge. Escutcheon of pretense or ensurtu, when one escutcheon is borne in the center of the coat. It is sometimes called an escutcheon or an escutcheon of pretense or an escutcheon ensurtu. Such centrally placed escutcheons usually have some particular significance. For example, in Arms of Dominion, an escutcheon typically shows the dynastic arms of the prince, whose possessions are shown in the quarters of the main shield. Current examples include the arms of the Danish royal family, with an escutcheon of the House of Oldenburg, and the coat of arms of Spain, with an escutcheon of the House of Bourbon-Anjou. In Scots heraldry, the escutcheon ensurtu serves several different purposes. This all comes under the heading of marshalling. Lozenge, a rhombus with its long axis upright, resembling the diamond of playing cards. Fusel, a lozenge very much thinner than it is long. Maskell, a voided lozenge. Ruster, a lozenge pierced. Randall, a disc ball, as in the arms of the Duchy of Cornwall or of the Medici. In the Anglophone heraldries, differently colored Randalls have different names, e.g. a Randall or is called a bezant and a Randall azure is called a hurt. French heraldry solely distinguishes bezants and tourteaux. Hence, the Canadian francophone versions of blazons follow suit. Anglophone hurt is francophone tourteau d'azur, and Anglophone bezant is a bezant or annulet, a voided Randall. Billet, of small rectangle, resembling a brick or a letter. Billets are normally vertical, but can be horizontal. Diminutives. When a coat of arms contains two or more of an ordinary, they are nearly always blazoned as diminutives of the ordinary, as follows. Diminutives of the pale palette, theoretically half the width of a pale. Indoors, half the width of a palette, also found in pairs on either side of a pale when the term endorsed is used. Diminutives of the face bar, see above. Barrelet, narrower than both. Hamade, a bar couped which doesn't reach the edges of the shield, usually in threes. Diminutives of the bendlet, half the width of a bend. Ribbon, a reband, half the width of a bendlet, occasionally called a cost. Batten, a bendlet couped which doesn't reach the edges of the shield, often said to be only a bendlet sinister couped, but has certainly been used as a couped bendlet dexter since the 17th century at the latest. Diminutive of the bend sinister, bendlet sinister, half the width of a bend sinister, also very occasionally called a scarpa. Batten sinister, a bendlet sinister couped. Diminutives of the chevron: chevronel, half the width of a chevron, couple close, half the width of a chevronel, but only to be found in pairs with a chevron between them. The phrase a chevron between two couple closes has the alternative a chevron couple closed, in essence the same as cotizing. A chevron couple close is not found much in modern blazons. Diminutives of the chief: comble, half a chief, rare in the Anglophone heraldries, but does appear in the civic heraldry of France, there even being at least one chief charged with a comble. Chief enhanced, again, half a chief, sometimes said not to be a diminutive, but is indistinguishable from the comble, which is fillet, said, by those who do not believe in the comble or chief enhanced, to be the nearest that the chief comes to having a diminutive, which is effectively a barrelet conjoined to a chief at its bottom edge, blazoned either as a chief supported by a fillet, or as a chief filleted. Occasionally appears in its own right, though it is then very little other than a barrelet enhanced. Diminutive of the cross fillet, somewhat less than half the width of a cross. Diminutive of the saltire fillet: saltire, something less than half the width of a saltire. Saltoral is sometimes said to be a diminutive saltire, but is best thought of simply as a saltire couped, the word being sometimes used when there are three or more. In 19th century armorial uses, saltorals only once for every 10 or 11 saltires, a common charge in Dutch heraldry. Cottis and cotizing. The cottis originated as an alternative name to cost and so as a diminutive of the bend, most commonly found in pairs on either side of a bend, with the bend being blazoned either as between two cottises or as cottised. Nowadays cotizing is used not just for bends but for practically all the ordinaries, and consists in placing the ordinary between two diminutive versions of itself. A pale treated is usually blazoned endorsed on a chevron, very occasionally couple closed or between two couple closes. The ordinary and its cottises need not have the same tincture of the same line ornamentation. Ordinaries very occasionally get cottised by things shaped quite differently from their diminutives, like demi-maple leaves. Occasionally a collection of charges aligned as if on an ordinary, in bend, etc., is accompanied by cottising, voiding, surmounting with another, and fimbriation. Any type of charge, but probably most often the ordinaries and subordinaries, can be voided without further description. This means that a hole in the shape of the charge reveals the field behind it. Occasionally the hole is of different tincture or shape, so that the charge appears to be surcharged with a smaller charge.